What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I am going to be reacting to Alice's character demo, Sword and Waltz. I'm very excited to get into this. I've been expecting this to come out for a few days, but it's out now, so I'm just going to get straight to it. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, consider becoming a channel member if you want to support me, just that little bit extra, and let's get into this. Ooh, okay, we got the more widescreen aspect ratio. The way she starts her day, her home. She is a rich girl, or at the very least, higher society. Aw, she's so scared so easily.
We'll head to the Hollow for routine data collection.
Interesting.
Please wait. Your position is too forward.
Pardon me, young miss. Let's begin.
Some training?
You
Ooh,
has a disturbing reputation. Are you certain you're prepared?
interesting.
An opening.
The Sword Master Butler, I love the vibe.
Then it's time we take this seriously, young miss.
The pose. The lack of symmetry.
It seems you've reached peak form, young miss.
Ooh, she cut the core out
This place doesn't
perfectly.
look frightening at all, does it? It's elegant, peaceful.
And the lights are gonna go out or something? Ooh. Alright.
Looks like we've got some guests who forgot their manners.
Quite a lot of ethereals.
Such beautiful composition. Ruined. How rude.
Ooh. The classical music in here.
Ever taught you to bow before a duel?
Oh, I love her fighting style. The way she just discards her rapiers is so cool. This is really fun. Ooh, the throw, okay. This is so fucking stylish.
An exquisite display of
Oh, and they all fall perfectly.
an exquisite display of
Oh,
flawless
no,
symmetry.
yeah, okay.
Not yet.
There we
Over
go.
there.
As you wish, we'll repair it at once. If I may, being easily startled does little for your dignified image.
Fair.
Perhaps a few ghost stories might desensitize you?
Ghost stories?
Interesting. Fun. So this is a fairly straightforward trailer, but it has a lot to it nonetheless. It really gets to the core of Alice as a character very well. Obviously, at the start here, we are following her as she just gets ready for the day. As we knew, she comes from a very wealthy family and one with very sort of aristocratic stylings and sensibilities. We see here that she's got two servants at her side. This is a full big open room. And we have this shot here where she's looking directly into the camera, but it's her looking into the mirror, scrutinizing her appearance, making sure everything's symmetrical. And it serves to emphasize that her eyes are not symmetrical. They are not the same colors. She has a limited degree of heterochromia going on, which I personally just enjoy as a aesthetic piece to her character. This person obsessed with symmetry has this one fundamental aspect about them that isn't quite symmetrical, that normally is. But then we have her butler arriving, spooking her as he had just calmly, quietly came up behind her and then spoke. She's incredibly easy to scare. This shows that, but he's here to tell her that it's time for your training. And as we transition to this one training match, this training duel, we have them discussing that they have on the schedule going into a hollow for routine data collection. Presumably part of her training, getting actual on-field practice, but it also very well could be for an actual job of some kind. But immediately before they can even start their match, she corrects his positioning, him being too forward. They have to be the right distance apart, right in the correct portion of the room, and he just rolls with the punches, steps back, slightly bows, saying, "Pardon me, miss." He is clearly used to her oddities, but then we jump straight into the fight. And though it is obviously much more bombastic, much more dramatic, it very much is a rapier dueling style. We have this moment where we focus on their footing, which is really nice. I really appreciate that. And just throughout all of this, they are just talking. Clearly, this is routine to them. Despite them spinning around each other in active combat, they are just acting as if this is some normal conversation. Continuing from where they left off, with the butler saying, "The hollow we're heading to has a disturbing reputation," and apologizing for that. And as he winds up for a big thrust, he asks if she's prepared. He obviously knows that she is easily scarable and that such a thing might cause her to be too afraid to go through with it. And we see, though she parries the attack, she clearly gets thrown off guard by this just long enough for him to recognize an opening and go for another bigger thrust. But she's able to parry and dodge away nonetheless. She gets back into gear, manages to disarm and knock him back as she claims, "I'm not scared." But there's that little stutter. And a cool touch we can see is that she doesn't just let his sword clatter to the ground, she actually catches it before it falls, now dual wielding. At which point, rather than a duel, it just becomes another bit of training with this ethereal dummy that the butler brings up and then poses dramatically next to, saying it's time to take this seriously. At which point Alice notices that it's missing part of one arm, as a lot of the ethereals do, and this just enrages her. It's not symmetrical after all. She calls it horrifyingly ugly. Not only is it a monster, but it's asymmetrical at that. And so as we move into her action, we follow it not through actual movement mainly, but through these really nice impact frame styled just bursts of movement implied, being these big streaks of white on black, switching to black on red, becoming almost nothing, having this big red hue, interestingly enough, that then immediately comes back to essentially reality to show the conclusion of the action. We get motion and direction just purely implied with those shots, and then the aftermath. She cuts off the one main arm of the ethereal. We then get our next burst of motion, and this serves as a way to change camera angle as well, though just subtly enough that the motion is still followable. She cut off the other smaller arm, making it now much more symmetrical, and then we follow a third motion going to the right. We don't immediately see what she has done, but then as she sort of slashes down her blades, it's revealed she's cut it to pieces, and the core of the ethereal has been perfectly cut out in a essentially perfect circle, showing just the sheer precision of her blade work. And the butler recognizes this. "It seems you've reached peak form, young miss," as he admires the work of her cutting out the core. And then we immediately transition to the hollow, which is remarkably bright for a hollow. As she acknowledges, "This place doesn't look frightening at all, does it?" And during this initial bit, we have just this much more light-hearted music. She acknowledges it's elegant, peaceful, and surprisingly symmetrical, which of course is the most important thing to her. But just as fast as she can say that it's symmetrical, one of the pieces of its symmetry is lost. An ethereal dashes by, cutting down one of these banners, immediately scaring her, because of course it does. You then have this tracking shot following the ethereal hound moving around her, and as she looks around frightened, clearly not sure what's going on, who it is around her, the butler is unfazed, saying, "Looks like we've got some guests who forgot their manners." At which point we have this collection of ethereals moving into view in shockingly symmetrical form. But then these two hounds come in, and not perfectly mirrored in their movements. They aren't perfectly symmetrical. They're largely in line with each other, just not perfectly. We can tell by the fact that this one is coming from above this corner and this one was coming from below. It's just not quite right, where the others were solid. And she, as we saw before with another piece of asymmetry, just becomes enraged by this. Such beautiful composition ruined. At which point the fight starts. She dodges out of the way of the two hounds, who now are moving in relative symmetry, and at this point the butler just fades to the background to let her do her work. And as she essentially just swats them away as they come at her, she's just scolding them. Has no one ever taught you to bow before a duel? Of course, the ethereals don't think of this as a duel. They think of this as just killing, or whatever an ethereal thinks, if anything. But she views this as a duel. And then we have this really interesting moment where, in a pause in the fight, she just drops one of her rapiers, draws another one, throws the two together, but when they clatter and clang and don't land perfectly symmetrically, she takes the time to kick them into position so that they are aligned, their points angled to meet at the tip, and roughly aligned with the floor's pattern as well. And we can see that she's already drawn a third rapier. These are very disposable. Then, as we're getting some shots of her throwing her rapier as an actual fighting tactic, she is saying to her enemies that she's destroying, "Good, stay just like that." She is setting up a composition, a symmetrical pattern for the way this battle ends. And finally, to finish it off, she goes into this hyperspeed dash with her blade, forming this star pattern, finishing in the middle, all of the enemies blasting away from her. And we can see that they are incredibly symmetrical in their pattern that they fall in. The dogs are both facing up, their limbs are in, their tails are scooped in, and they are just sort of above this middle horizontal line and on these vertical lines. The bottom corner ethereals have their heads pointing outward towards the outer corners, while the upper two have their heads pointing to the inner corners of their corners, and are all almost entirely inside these corner boxes. Then we have the inner corners of this pattern where all of the ethereals are positioned with their blade hands pointing roughly inward towards her. And then we have the one irregularity. The two ethereals in the middle horizontal are not aligned. One made it to the corner of this diamond with their body sort of arcing to the corner's shape, but this one didn't even make it there and is just sprawled out. Another interesting detail is for this overhead shot, we are doing it from within whatever chandelier or ceiling ornament this is, which is notably not symmetrical in nature. Just an interesting touch. And it's with this that the butler begins to say, what an exquisite display of... But he doesn't get to finish because Alice gets annoyed, tosses her blade to the side, and kicks the one that is not in position to position, at which point the butler appears next to her, aligned with her for proper symmetry, finishing his statement of an exquisite display of flawless symmetry. Clearly he appreciates it just as much as she does, even if he isn't necessarily as worried about it himself. Also, a final touch that I didn't notice initially is all of the rapiers she has used, the ones she's tossed aside, the ones she's thrown, are arced out around her in a circle in the center. But she is not satisfied with this regardless of how perfect it is. She points to the missing banner that was cut down, and she says, "Not yet, over there. We need to repair that banner for this to be properly symmetrical." And once again, the butler just goes along with it, "As you wish, we'll repair it at once." And that is essentially the trailer, with just the final touch of the butler saying, "Being easily startled does little for your dignified image. Perhaps a few ghost stories might desensitize you." A nice sort of acknowledgement of where she ends up being tied to the spook shack and Yuzuha. But that is the trailer. Like I said, pretty straightforward, but very well done for what it's doing, showing off the precision and mastery that Alice has and the perfection that she seeks from her own work, as well as her being easily scared. It's fun, it's cool, very stylish fight scenes. I enjoy it quite a bit. But with that, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and very special thanks to all of my channel members, being Desaize and Pokelove101 at the normal tier, and Kondo Nano at the cool person tier. Really appreciate your support as always, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.